Doctors gave me just a 3% chance of surviving. It was during those days that I saw something that forever changed my understanding of death. Hi friends. My name is Randy. I'm 70 years old now. I had my near-death experience when I was 67, 3 years ago. I live just outside Pensacola, Florida. My wife and I have been here for about 8 years, and we absolutely love the area. That's exactly where I caught COVID in March of 2020. To this day, I still don't know how or where I got it, but it knocked me flat. When I got sick, I was so bad off that they hospitalized me immediately. After only 24 hours in the hospital, they put me on a ventilator. I was on it for just over a day when the machine maxed out and I went into acute respiratory failure. They rushed me onto a helicopter and flew me to a bigger hospital in Pensacola. There they operated on me and hooked me up to ECMO. That's the machine that completely takes over for your heart and lungs. A few hours later, my kidneys failed, I went on dialysis, then my liver enlarged and started throwing blood clots throughout my body. Basically, every major organ was shutting down. That's when the doctors called my family and said, "He's got about a 3% chance, you need to prepare for the worst." I entered the hospital on March 26, 2020, and didn't leave until May 9th. 6 weeks total, 4 of them in a deep coma. And right in the middle of all that, friends, I had 4 separate near-death experiences. I don't know the exact order they happened, but the first one I remember clearly is a black tunnel. I wasn't flying fast, I was just moving slowly through it. The tunnel was wrapped in brilliant light, but inside it was dark. The light didn't shine in, yet I could feel how blindingly bright it was on the outside, and in that moment, I felt the most incredible relaxation and deep peace. I knew I was dead. I remember thinking, "Okay, Randy, you're dead. But where are we going now?" The next thing I remember is standing inside an unbelievably beautiful building. I just froze and stared in awe. Everything was gold, huge arches on 3 sides, golden inlays, gorgeous stained glass windows high above, massive chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, and water features cascading down. I was standing on a mezzanine looking down. The colors, the atmosphere, nothing on earth feels like that. You feel warmth, love, and a peace that just opens your heart. A man approached me, olive skin, dark hair, dark beard, wearing a simple brown robe. He almost floated over to me. I told him how incredibly beautiful the room was and asked, "What is this place?" He smiled and said, "This is one of our favorite rooms. It gets the most visitors." Then he added, "But you don't belong here, Randy. You have to leave." He pointed to these magnificent oak doors, hand-carved, absolutely stunning. I walked through them, sensing someone was right beside me, even though I couldn't see who. We went down some steps and stepped into a golden city. The buildings reached straight up into the sky, everything golden, windows like frosted glass. The streets were made of some strange translucent material. No cars, no buses, just perfect cleanliness. I walked through the streets, passing parks with grass so green you'd never see it even in the highlands of Scotland or Ireland. Kids were playing far off in one of the parks. Then suddenly, I got lost. Fear hit me hard. I sat down on the curb and started crying. It got cold. I could feel people around me, but I couldn't see anyone. I was shouting, "Please, somebody help me." Then, over my shoulder, I saw these beautiful white stairs rising up into the clouds, going higher than I could see. I thought, if I can just get to those stairs, maybe someone will find me. I started crawling up them. I don't know how high I got, but all of a sudden I heard voices. "There he is. There's Randy. Grab him." It felt like someone grabbed me by the collar and yanked me right off those stairs. Everything went instantly black. I was back in the darkness of my coma. But my consciousness came back again. This time I was walking along a beautiful dirt path. On both sides were flowers and trees of unbelievable beauty. In the distance I could see meadows and a river flowed through them. Once again, I knew with total clarity, I was dead. Then out of nowhere a little boy about 10 years old appeared. Long, dark, bowl-cut hair, no shirt, 3/4 shorts, barefoot olive skin. He was super animated, waving his arms and saying, "Come on, follow me, follow me." He led me farther down the path and we entered another beautiful room with big picture windows and leather chairs. The boy said, "Wait here, I'll be right back." I walked over to the window. The river I had seen earlier flowed right underneath the building. There were people in the water, not splashing around wildly, just sitting peacefully on the banks, enjoying the day and talking. All around were fields of flowers in every color, red, green, orange, blue. I don't know how long I waited, but the boy came back and said, "I'm sorry, Randy, but you have to leave." I told him, "No, please, I don't want to. It's so peaceful here, so full of love. I've never felt so loved in my entire life." He just gave me a sad little smile and said, "I'm sorry, your room isn't ready yet. You have to go back." And again, darkness. The feeling you experience there is impossible to put into words. I had been afraid of death my whole life. I used to have full-blown panic attacks just thinking about my own death. I spent 30 years as a homicide detective. I saw death every single day, but I couldn't even talk about my own without panicking. Yet there, knowing that I, Randy, was dead, I felt nothing but absolute peace. It was revolutionary. My consciousness woke up one more time. It felt like I came out of the tunnel again, but this time I stepped into a grey void, like late twilight. Orbs of light were floating past me. One came right up and telepathically said, "Follow me." We went deeper. Suddenly, like a spotlight coming on in a dark theatre, a light appeared, and there stood my deceased mother-in-law, Dolores. I shouted, "Dolores, it's Randy. I'm here." She was sitting very regally in a beautiful white gown with a white sash, her hair up in a bun with a white ribbon. She only glanced at me for a second, then looked away. My guide said, "We need to go farther." I could sense everything around me in 360 degrees. I knew her light was slowly dimming behind me until it disappeared completely. A young man ran past us quickly. It was my deceased brother-in-law, still a teenager. Then far ahead another light came on. I instantly knew it was my mom, dad, and my sister Gina. I yelled, "Mom! Dad! Gina! It's me, Randy!" They looked in my direction but then turned away. I felt a barrier, the veil of death. They didn't want me to come any farther. My kids later explained that I wasn't a religious person. I was a skeptic. I'd been baptized Lutheran, then became Catholic, so my daughters could attend Catholic school. My wife has been Catholic her whole life, but I always doubted. Suddenly another orb shot in from the right and stopped right in front of me. I had served 20 years in the Air Force. I'm a veteran. The word veteran started repeating over and over in my head. The face materialized for just a second, and he said clearly, "Tell Madison at the salon that her grandfather is okay." Then he moved over to a white porch with another light figure beside him and started making red, white, and blue ribbons and American flags. My guide said, "Randy, it's time for you to go back." And everything faded to black. When I finally came out of the coma, I immediately told my daughter everything I had experienced. After I was discharged, I had to learn to walk all over again. I was in a wheelchair. A couple of months went by, and I still hadn't had a haircut. I wanted to get one, but with COVID, I didn't even know if barbershops were open. The kids filled me in on everything that had happened in the world during those 6 weeks. I started digging through my dresser drawer. I don't even know what I was looking for. And suddenly, I found a business card for a local barbershop. I'd been there a couple of times. I showed it to my wife and said, "Call and see if they're open." A few minutes later, my daughter, who's a nurse and had moved back home to take care of me, came in and started questioning me. "Where did you get this card? How long have you had it? Where exactly did you find it?" I kept saying, "I don't know, it was just in the drawer." She looked at me and said, "Dad, I think we just found your Madison." On the card it clearly said Madison Logan. I had never seen it before. I told her, "Book me an appointment with her." My wife couldn't handle it emotionally and asked our daughter to take me. I went in on a walker. They let me inside while everyone else waited outside. A few minutes later, this young woman walked up and said, "Hi, I'm Madison. Are you Randy?" I nodded. I sat down in her chair. While she was cutting my hair, I asked, "Can I ask you a few personal questions?" She said, "Sure." I asked if both her grandfathers were still alive. She said no. The one I was closest to passed away less than a year ago. in June of 2019. I asked if he was a veteran. Yes, she said, he served in the army and used to talk about Vietnam a lot. I asked if he lived around here. No, our whole family is from Iowa. Iowa is about 1,900 miles away. I had never been there. I asked if he had ever visited this area. She said, no, he never got the chance before he passed. I knew I had the right Madison. I told her, Madison, I think your grandfather came to me. My daughter had already told her how sick I had been, but not about the near-death experiences. I delivered the message, tell Madison at the salon that her grandfather is okay. We all started crying right there in the barber shop. People were looking at us like we were from another planet. I added, he moved to a white porch. Does that mean anything to you? She said, that was his house in Iowa. He loved sitting on that white porch and talking to people as they walked by. Then I said, he was making red, white, and blue ribbons and American flags. She stepped back like she'd seen a ghost. After a few seconds, she composed herself and told me, he belonged to the American Legion in Iowa. Every Veterans Day, the whole family would go down there and make ribbons and flags for the veterans' graves. It was total validation. I didn't know this man. His name was John. He not only gave me the exact business card so I could find Madison, he also gave me details that only the family could possibly know. God wants us to love one another. That's exactly what I brought back with me. I've changed so much. My family and friends keep telling me how different I am now. I'm more open, more caring, much calmer. I used to be a classic type A guy, a tough homicide detective with a master's in forensic science, everything approached scientifically. Now I'm softer, more accepting, and above all, more loving. COVID saved my life. Because I was a skeptic, I was terrified of death. I thought when you die it's just lights out like flipping a switch. That's why I had panic attacks. But now I know for sure, there is life after this. I, Randy, experienced it. God gave an old cynical detective the exact evidence I needed. He knew that was the only way I would believe, and he gave it to me.